AltaVista, the highest view in contractor marketing.
If you're not listening to the angle, you will surely fall behind.
Are you going to exist in your space, or are you going to dominate?
Trust the process.
Are you planning for today or adapting for the future?
This is the AltaVista angle. Hey everybody, Aaron Hockel here. Welcome back to another episode of the AltaVista angle. On the last episode, we talked about how the contractor economy and the economy in general is getting a little tougher in 2025, maybe versus the last couple of years. Today, we really want to talk about how do we combat that, right? If things are getting a little tougher, how do we build a good sales marketing plan to really kind of, keep our business growing?
Well, Howell, thanks for blessing us with your presence. Aren't you at the beach for, I don't know, the whole month or the whole summer?
Well, I'm actually going to be back in Baltimore later this week, but yes, just for the couple of weeks here in July, and then maybe another couple weeks in July.
But you don't even like the beach.
No, I have not been in the ocean, nor will I probably go into the ocean.
You haven't even crossed Coastal Highway to go near the beach.
That is correct.
Yes.
Actually, not true. I had to cross Coastal Highway because my kids wanted to ride the public bus as one of the things on their bucket list. So we had to get northbound on the Ocean City bus. And if anybody's ridden the Ocean City bus, it's one of a kind. It's an experience.
Yeah, I have ridden that bus quite many times. But I heard you on the Roofer Show last week. You did a great job. What are Dave's listeners seeing? And again, I'll preface it for all of our audience that his show is tailored more to the residential roofer, I believe, correct?
Yeah, correct, right? And Dave's been doing it a long time. And, on his episode, we were talking about marketing and challenges. And a lot of his listeners who are residential have said things are really slowing down, right? And, one of the things we did talk about on there is if you wanted to put new siding or a new roof on your house, you probably did it in 2022 or 2023. So things are getting tougher out there on the residential side, right?
Yeah, that's a fact. And I know we talk this, we're dealing with our customers, right? Our customers are commercial and residential. So we would just want to preface that. And we are seeing more of a slowdown on the residential side. It's not to say that the commercial side is booming. It seems stable, but we are definitely see more of a slowdown on the residential side. So I do want to cover that, but I got a funny text last week from our boy out in Chicago, Aaron. Brian, you didn't hear about that text yet, did you?
No, not yet.
Yeah, we caught some flack. We caught a lot of good feedback from the episode, but I did catch some flack. So I'm gonna read what our boy out in Chicago, who we referenced last week, his business is up 30%. He is not seeing a slowdown at all. He's a 12-year AltaVista client. That's probably why he hasn't seen a slowdown, by the way. But yeah, he's had a great run. And he sent Aaron and I a text. I guess he saw some marketing for an episode of something, why the leads are slowing down. And his response were, I'm definitely not listening to that podcast. It sounds like a bunch of excuses to me. Happy Friday, boys. So it's great to see that one of our customers is listening. And after I spoke to him, we had a great dialogue about the economy slowing. And he said he was just kind of busting our chops a little bit. He said his manufacturers on the commercial side are definitely seeing a slowdown too. So again, we're going to have success stories and we're going to have some struggles. And again, our goal today is how do we navigate through all that? And I think that's what we're here to cover today.
There we go. Right. Yeah. Right. And so when manufacturers are saying things are slowing things down, right? They're looking at things from a really broad perspective, right? They're seeing hundreds of contractors, thousands of contractors, all different sizes, right? And, things really kind of slowing down, right? I think what the overall theme we're getting from some of our customers, and I know we were talking to somebody in the Carolinas, and they're saying, hey, we're still doing okay. Hey, things started out a little bit slower. We're picking back up and we're seeing movement, right? But I think it goes into some of these comments that the economy is slowing down, right? And I think you were talking about some stats that you had that were really kind of eye-opening beyond just anecdotal, hey, people did their kitchen 2 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, all right, I'll read these off to you because I started monitoring these last year, and they're pretty staggering, right? Credit card debts at an all-time high. Credit card delinquencies are at a 10-year high. 31% of student loans are over 90 days and at an all-time high. 42 million Americans have some form of student debt. Their payments could be about 10 to 20% of their disposable income, just on their student debt payments alone. Auto loan defaults are an all-time high. Now, if you're not looking at that and thinking, well, this could be why people are slowing down their spending, I mean, those are really obvious statistics we can't argue with, right? And then for the commercial contractor, they say, well, that doesn't affect me, but just remember the consumer drives 70% of the United States gross domestic product. So for people who are doing well, I just encourage you to just understand where we are in the economy. And it's not hunker down time. We talked about that last week. It's time to invest in your brand. It's time to be a winner, right? Somebody who's going to take advantage of this. Because then we're seeing it in our client base. We have clients hunkering down. I spoke to one last week. They overextended. There's a really large business. They overextended in 21, 22, and 23. And they've closed $1 million off of AltaVista in the first quarter. And they want to cancel. And he doesn't want to cancel. He says, we have to cancel. We're cutting cost. So there's an opportunity for the companies that aren't cutting cost. And I think that is where we are right now. This is not hunker down time. This is time to invest in your brand, invest in your strategies, and become a winner. And there will be failures. There will be companies that will fail. But again, if you do the right things, you'll be one of the winners.
Yeah. And I think as we talk about winners, right, we talk about like a winner's mentality. And how does that winner's mentality work, right? And what are they doing and how are they thinking right now? I don't know, Nicholas Dunkel, you got any thoughts on that of sort of how are you thinking? How are you acting? The guys that are going to really win, what are they doing? What are they thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Hawk. I did listen to that podcast that you did for Dave on the Roofer Show. And two things that really stood out to me, the two words actually that I heard were hustle and consistency. So I know a lot of contractors practice these in their everyday, right? Every day they get up, they get to the office, they get their crews out, right? They have these routines that are very consistent and they're hustling. They're on the road, they're picking up the phone, they're getting their bids out, they're following up with their bids. They're very consistent and they're hustling. To flip that and to make sure that you're executing consistency and hustling on the marketing side is equally as important, right? We do a lot of process-driven things here at AltaVista that help our customers every day. And the crux of those really is consistency in our marketing efforts, consistency in doing what's working, and the hustle, never turning it off and just making sure that in any given day, you're executing the strategies that really work and really make you successful.
Yeah, it's funny. I know you're a diehard Orioles fan, and I have that Oriole bird in your shoulder there. And I think Cal Ripken Jr., consistency and hustle there, right? And one of the Bryans that's on here today actually approached him recently when we were in our early 40s to go get a picture with him because he such a big Cal Ripken Jr. fan. I won't call out which Brian it is, but one of us couldn't avoid the opportunity to meet the Iron Man. Brian Dunkel, sales side, consistency, hustle. How do you look at that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to finally speak after like 5 to 10 minutes of this podcast. Just joking. No, to me, consistency and hustle, they go hand in hand, but they're also obviously very different. To me, consistency is showing up every day. And I like to think of it as stacking bricks, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a sales pipeline, right? So look, I compare sales consistency to like working out, investing, saving money, right? The more you do it, the longer you're at it, the more successful you're going to be. pretty simple. And obviously you extrapolate that, the more robust your sales pipeline is going to be. And then when you think about hustle, I look at that as being internally motivated, right? Motivated to set your goals, but then more importantly, motivated to achieve those goals. And I always like to say this, right? This is a conversation Aaron and I had last year, but motivated like your life actually depends on it, right? When you come to work each and every day. So again, that's how I view consistency and hustle, and how I kind of relate that to the sales process.
Yeah. And I think an interesting thing that I just thought about while you were talking in there is, yeah, we do jokingly say we show up to work every day like our lives depend on it, but they actually do, right? Like we take that very seriously. I think being consistent and hustling, obviously important, but you got to be in the right places, right? Like you could be very consistent eating the wrong foods. You can be very dedicated to an unhealthy lifestyle, right? But like
Sure.
you got to be consistent in the right things and the right habits. And you got to be hustling in the right places and putting that effort into the right sort of things, right?
Absolutely.
And so as we look at it, what are some of those right things? What are those right things that we're seeing working?
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of went into that, right? The right things. One thing that we are seeing right now as we talk about consistency and we talk about all of these other things, one thing that we see is with the Google ad piece, right? So we see a lot of contractors that have success with this on the residential side. There's a lot of value to be had on the commercial side as well. And that's where the consistency piece comes in. It's understanding kind of what the process looks like, understanding the potential pitfalls. You're going to have a lot of these residential leads, which a lot of contractors, a lot of our customers would take and they like. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for those commercial leads, there's still a lot of value to be had in Google Ads and staying consistent with that approach. As a matter of fact, we just had a client that got a $1 million lead with SpaceX. So Elon Musk is going to be signing that proposal here, and which is wild to think about, right? I mean, you're talking about a commercial facility or plant manager logging on and using Google to find a contractor. A lot of people don't think that they're doing that, but here, it's clear that they are, and they're doing it for massive, massive companies.
Yeah. And where I think consistency on that is, it's having a consistent approach in your strategy. It's having a consistent positioning of your brand, right? So we want to consistently be where, on the marketing side, we want to consistently be where our potential prospects and customers are looking for us, right? And I always say that that's kind of the reactive piece, right? Like when they go looking, are we making sure that they're finding us? And are they finding us on Google? Are they finding us on ChatGPT? Are they finding us in the yellow pages 30 years ago? Maybe not anymore, but right, are we consistently positioning ourselves where our customers are looking? To what Brian's saying there, we are seeing them look online more and more, right? I think also we split this and we say there's also consistency and there's also hustle on the sales side. And that looks a little bit different than the marketing side, right? And so, I mean, Brian Dunkel, Ray, both a lot of sales experience. Maybe Ray, we haven't heard from you in a minute. What does that sales consistency look like for you?
Well, I think when Dunkel was talking, it kind of reminded me of a story, and maybe Nichols will remember this. We were sales consultants when we started the business, and we were working for really our second customer, and they asked us to interview a prospective candidate for a sales position. I don't know, Nichols, do you remember this? Were you in the interview or no?
I would have been, yeah.
Yeah. And so our client really liked this guy. And they said, hey, Ray, we want you to come up and give the final stamp on this particular person. And I said, we got through our rapport building and went through a couple, basic Q&As. And I said, what time do you get up in the morning? And he said, well, it varies, he said. And I remember having a conversation with Aaron Hockel when we brought you on, Aaron, 13 years ago. I'm like, tell me about your day. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I get up at this time, I do this, I do this, I
Right.
do this.
At 5:30, I'm up at 5:30, right? And I know Brian Dunkel, very similar. Right? When Dunkel was talking, it made me think of that story. And when we talk about consistency in sales, it's not just consistency and getting the work on time. It's consistency in life. The joke for me was, what day of week do I get gas?
Sunday.
Why is it Sunday, Brian?
So you don't have to get it on Monday.
Right, because Lee Weinstein, thank you, Lee, my first boss, said winners get gas on Sunday and they're ready to work on Monday morning. And he didn't mean just gas. He meant you're ready to work on Monday morning. And guys like Brian Dunkel and Aaron Hockel that were getting up at 5:30 in the morning to get to the gym, so they're at their desk. And I think Aaron actually told me he's at his desk at 6:45 banging phones. Now, I don't know if that was true or not, but we hired him anyway. So, but that's what we're talking about when it's consistency and hard work, right? Nobody says I'm not consistent. Nobody says I don't work hard. Everybody says they do that. But if you're failing in sales, I can promise you're not doing it. So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
as we talk hustle, right? Brian Dunkel, why don't you talk about hustle, right? Like, hey, we get an opportunity. In AltaVista, we always call them opportunities. We never call them leads. We think of leads as being these bids you're going to go chase and waste your time on. We look at everything as a sales opportunity, opportunity to gain a customer. So, Brian Dunkel, someone says, hey, I want to work with you, AltaVista. What does hustle look like from there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I know we talked about last week, and it's something you brought up, kind of that speed to lead, right? And again, we don't talk about leads, we talk about opportunities, but it still resonates, right? You want to be quick to the draw, right? But again, I also think when you're talking about, speed to lead and touch points, a lot of it stems to not all leads and or opportunities, right, are the same. Sometimes you have a great referral, right? Land in your lap. And maybe that's one or two touch points, right? You've already built rapport, you got rapport from the client who referred you, right? But then you might have a really great opportunity, right, and or lead that you got to work, right? It might take weeks, months, even years, right? But then you kind of take a step backward. It all kind of stems to relationship building, right? And I learned a lot of the relationship side of things, not only from Ray, but also from my father, right, who's been in the sales process for 40 plus years. And my dad, he's not only the king of building relationships, but he's the king of maintaining relationships, right? He'd be the first to tell you when people want to buy, right? And again, whether that's on an initial phone call, a prospecting call, building rapport, they want to buy from people they like, but more importantly, that they trust, right? So that was something that was drilled into me, growing up, and then, when you talk about, the consistency and hustle, I see this a lot, right, with a lot of our clients, where some of our clients get tripped up, reaching out once or twice, right, to a client or prospect and assuming when they don't respond that they're not interested, right? And then that takes me back to what I mentioned in the last episode, touch points, right? When you're talking about, for me, to really give yourself the best opportunity to sell, you're looking at 8 to 13 touch points. Look, and that's a range. Obviously, those touch points could be shorter. As I said, if it's a referral, it could be longer. But the rule of thumb for me is that a lead and or opportunity is not dead until I get a firm no. And then even if it's a firm no, if they've showed interest, I'm reaching out in 3 to 4 months. So that's really, when I think about all that, the speed to lead or the consistency or hustle, it's just exhausting every single opportunity, right? And I don't know if that speaks to anyone else, on this podcast.
Yeah, I got one there. The most rewarding ones are the ones that take forever.
Yeah.
We have a customer in Los Angeles. I called Dave, and he has since sold the business to some of his employees, but I called Dave every Thursday for over a year on my drive home. And it was nice because he was in California and I was in Maryland, but I called him every week for over a year. And I actually saw him in his offices 2 separate times in Los Angeles to get this done. And they've been a customer now for maybe 6 or 7 years, and we've had tremendous success together. But that's just one where you're like, how many touch points Are you going to exhaust it? Are you really going to get them to say no? Like, I want to hear you say no. He never said no. And I would talk to him maybe once every 2-3 months. He would randomly answer and he'd say, I haven't said no yet. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to keep calling you. And now we're here.
Yeah, actually, I actually had a thought on that too, because if it's Aaron making those calls to Los Angeles, you know it had to be the winter time, because Aaron was really good about picking the warm markets of AltaVista, like Miami and Los Angeles. And then Dunkel came in, he's got Des Moines, Iowa, and in Boise, exactly. Idaho, right? So that's what came to mind with you, Aaron.
Yeah. Brian's got some nice ones too.
Yeah.
The last
what about, hey, Dunkel, on sort of best practices, where else do you go? Like, I mean, what else? I mean, we talked about, getting face-to-face with people. Like, we had a customer out in Grand Rapids, real nice guy. He just doesn't understand the value of getting that face-to-face meeting. And I told him, if you're not getting face-to-face and you're going to treat these as bids, you should fire us today.
Yep.
Right? Because these are not bids. These are opportunities to do more business. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Opportunities too. And again, I say this all the time, opportunity to get a long-term customer. I mean, that's the value, right? We like to bring at AltaVista. It's not just a one-off job, but a long-standing client. Right. So yeah, for me, you talk about touch points, it can be a million different things. It's not just phone calls or emails. To your point, if you just rely on a phone call or email, you're losing, right? Look, if you can't get traction, stop by a client's office, drop off an intro package, buy the office coffee, buy them donuts, right? Make your presence known. And then also, if that doesn't work, right, or you're getting traction there, it can be a LinkedIn connection request. It can be a LinkedIn message. It could be a handwritten note, right? Again, the idea, you have to keep your business, your brand, your services in front of as many prospects as possible, build those relationships. Because again, if you take that extra step, right, you're winning, you're beating the competition, right? And that's, I know, right, you talk about that a lot, right? How do you disqualify, right, the competition while also doing it professionally? And for me, a lot of that is just outworking them, right? And then obviously some other tactics as well.
Yeah, one thing that I think that you do an amazing job of, and I've watched you do this because I'm in Salesforce, right? And I'm looking at the notes. Dunkel he's sort of agnostic to the close. He's consistent to the process.
Yeah.
And he's not worried about it. You'll see notes in the system where Dunkel's touched somebody 14 times. And the prospect will say, reach back out to me January 2nd of 2024. And he's got a note in the system, January 2nd, 2024. And it still didn't close.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, you got a phone call.
Yeah.
And the guy closed.
Exactly.
And I will tell you, I've been in this business for 30 years and I've worked with salespeople. I've never met anybody that is as consistent as Brian Dunkel. And if any of our team, any of our customer needs a little sales training or sales assistant, reach out to AltaVista, because what he says is what he does. And we've seen it for 12 years. So thank you for all that hard work.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I have my my Alabama shirt on, because that's like a Nick Saban quote where he always says results are BS, right? It's process. And the results, they come right from that process. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. One thing you didn't say there, Dunkel, text message, right?
Oh,
we have a customer who had to give a real success story, and we're like, hey, how are you having these great connection rates? And this talks speed to lead, it talks touch point. And they go, as soon as the opportunity shows up, as soon as someone says, I want this, I need this, give me a call, whatever it is, their first mode of communication is a text.
Yep.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Ray. I got your information. I'm Aaron Hockel. I want to let you know I'm here to work with you. What's the best way to get in touch? A simple text message. And they say that's really been killing it for them. And you just didn't mention that as, I know you text people. I'm just
drop the ball,
bringing it up because that's a really good one.
No, that's a great one. It really is.
I actually, one of the things you said that was really impactful was the drop off of the intro packet. We had a client who said, yeah, this is exactly the lead I want, but I I didn't get them on the phone, or I couldn't get a response to the email. And I said, why don't you just drive to the plant, take some marketing tchotchkes and a nice intro package and leave it at the front desk. Maybe he has time when you're there, you get a meeting. If not, just leave it for him. And it's better than doing nothing. If that's really truly a client you want to do business with, you have your opportunity, go get it. And we have a client in Chicago that does just that. They actually visit every single opportunity that AltaVista sends. I think it's insanity, but he said the quality of your opportunities is so high that I do that. Now, you can't do that on the residential side. You can't do that when some of these leads are, with, say, the wrong buyer or the wrong contacts. But when you see that company come across, differentiate yourself, do something different, get your brand in front of that buyer.
All right, Ray. So you're talking there about dropping something off at a plant. Maybe you get face-to-face with that plant manager. Now you're face-to-face. That's the gold standard of sales. You brought up Lee Weinstein, your boss from the early 90s, Xerox. Talk to the famous Xerox sales process.
Yes, that's certainly a long time ago. But it's funny is we learned that back in the it was the thanks for saying that the 90s and not the 80s, because it was 1991. The Xerox sales process is staggeringly successful. Most people listening to this that are under 40 don't even know who Xerox really is, but it really was a sales innovator. Whether you're in a residential sale or whether you're in a commercial sale, do the steps of the process really change? I don't know, Aaron, what do you think?
I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because I hear this all the time. Like, Ray, you don't know how to sell in the residential home. And I have sold in the residential home. And it is a different sale than selling a $1 million copier to IBM, which takes months and months and months, right? But the process, the steps in which you go through don't change. And I challenge our customers to value. Do your salespeople follow a process, right? So if I'll try to do it from memory. It's gonna be pretty tough, but so obviously we've got the introduction. They used to want you to have an initial benefit statement. Step 2 is really rapport building. If you skip rapport building in sales, you're done, right? And most people don't even know how to do rapport building. They're asking stupid questions like, "Oh, I see you play golf. What's your handicap?" That's fine, but rapport building is about getting to know your prospect, getting to know their business. And again, asking great questions so you can influence later in the call. Next is a fact finding, right? This is where you're doing your work. Is you're fact finding, you're asking questions, you're probing, you're trying to understand what's going on within your buyer, whether it be Susie Jones who wants a new roof, right? Or it's a plant manager who needs the outside of his plant painted. Finding those pain points. Who painted your last job? How'd they do? Tell me what people say, Ray, you can't talk about the competition. That's wrong. You get them to talk about the competition. What'd you like about them? What did they do really well? They loosened down their guard, right? And then once that guard's loosened, you can start to say, what concerns did you have about the project? Did they meet all of your expectations? And again, those are great ways in fact find, and you're doing your probing to find those pain points that you can influence. And once you get a pain point, right, you're going to magnify that pain point. Well, they didn't show up on time and they didn't get the roof done on time. How did that impact you? I've yet to meet a salesperson in an organization that we've consulted where they actually know how to magnify that. Well, let me tell you how it impacted me. I almost lost my job. Well, talk about disqualifying one of your competition. Well, there, you've got it on the table now how you're going to disqualify your competition, right? Real simple. Makes sense to everybody? I mean, Aaron, you sold in a residential home. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, you 100% had to be asking all kinds of probing questions. And, a really big thing was understanding what would you like to have seen done differently?
Mm-hmm.
Contractors especially get a bad rap. Right? Like everybody's like, oh,
yeah, right.
Residential contractors, they cut corners, they overcharge me, they never show up, they don't communicate. right? Everyone has these contractor stories.
Yeah, if you
Right.
can't
And
find a
so,
pitfall, if you can't find a pitfall in the service provider
yeah,
of your prospect, then you're not doing it right. Okay.
yeah,
Again, start with the good things. What do you like about them? Let the buyer lets their guard down, and then you can transition into what concerns you have. But once you get there and you've done a really good job, you want to gain agreement with your prospect. Let's
yep,
gain agreement. This is what we're here to do. This is what your buying criteria are, right? They've listed out their buying criteria. I'm worried about my warranty. I'm worried about the price, and I'm worried about the service that I'm going to receive, right? And that's Xerox 101. Once you have all that, you wrap it up into a little package and you go for the pre-commit. If I can give you all of this, can we do business?
yeah,
It's not a close at that point in time. And the reason you make that simple pre-commit at that point in time is that you're not ready for the close, but maybe you are. And you didn't go for the full close. Sometimes the buyer might say, yeah, let's write this up right now. Then a good salesperson knows to transition. But again, you might not get it on pre-commit. And so that's why that pre-commit is so critically important. And then you've got potential objection handling to handle after the fact, right? Objection handling is something we could do days and days of objection handling. But again, in your industry, come up with your sample objection handles, what you typically get, and then have your responses ready. And again, if that goes all well and we threw the objection in, we're going to summarize. I'm going to summarize one more time. So you need a new roof. You've been using XYZ for 25 years. You brought me in today because you've had some service deficiencies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right? We get an agreement. Yes, that's correct. So in order for me to win the business today, if I can meet the needs, the service needs, the warranty needs, can we do this? Can we do this project for you? Yes, you can. Yeah. So let's say price is still the number one buying criteria. Well, at Xerox, we couldn't win on price. So it was our job to shift those buying criteria around, and we might have had to kind of drill down on price, right? Price isn't just what you're going to pay for the roof or the copier. Price is the lifetime cost of ownership of that roof or copier. And so if my client says to me, even in the world we live in today, hey, price is my number one buying criteria, I didn't do my job. And then at this point in the sales call, I've got to kind of restructure that. If the client says to me, look, Ray, price is price. This is a bid. And the low bid gets it at our organization. I'm still going to say, has that ever affected you negatively? Has that ever bit you in the ass by doing that, right? I'm not going to go away on price, because when you sold a Xerox copier in 1991, they were used equipment. They were remanufactured in Rochester, New York. We were substandard to the Japanese competition, which was Sharp, Minolta, Canon. They made a better machine with more features, but Xerox had the sales process. And we were able to say, well, look, maybe buying America was a great criteria back then. Whatever we could pivot to. And so I challenge you to say, are you going through a process in which you know the buyer? If you're in an RFP with a large plant and you're in the purchasing department and there's a written spec on the roof or the electrical job, guess what? It's a price decision. End of story. There's no way to change that in the public bid or in the sealed bid arena with the purchasing departments. But in most situations, when there's a $10,000 job going on at a plant, or you're doing a roof at Susie Jones's house, price is not always the criteria. So the sales rep has to walk through the process. And I would argue that if you're not mitigating the price issue, then you haven't done your job.
Yep.
And you're going to close on a lower margin, right? And then at that point in time, once we got the agreement and we've got the buying criteria, we're going to go for the close. And then how you go for the close at Xerox was the masterful. You never asked for the business. Can we do business today? Can I sell you a copier? Can I sell you a used copier today that's overpriced and underfeatured? Would you like to buy that from me today? No. Would you like delivery in July, or would you prefer we do it in August? Would you like the full service package with that, or would you like the limited service package? Would you like that? Would you like 5 months supplies, or would you like 6 months supplies? some type of alternate close, some type of assumptive close to transition to a really nice sales call.
Yeah. And what I really like about that process is the open-ended questions,
Right.
which you just laid out maybe 6 or 7 of them, because one, it takes the sales out of the equation. You're simply having a dialogue and getting those pre-commits, as you said. And like I said, that's relationship building 101.
Yeah, that's the best point, honestly. I thanks for covering that, Dunkel, because too many sales reps don't even know about open and closed-ended questions. Like asking closed-ended questions in the beginning of a meeting is the death of any meeting.
Yeah.
Now, it's okay to use some closed-ended questions, but learn your open-ended questions. Like tell me about, like tell me about your situation, not asking a direct closed-ended question.
Yeah, I agree. It's also a great way to get some ammunition. And maybe that's not the right word, but it's a great way to get some intelligence and some things to kind of gather your facts. And, Ray, you're famous for saying, if you're talking, you're losing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're talking, you're losing. Always remember that, because if you're a good listener, the close will just come to you. And that is, if you had one rule, we talked about differentiation being the one rule in your marketing and your business strategy, but in your sales strategy, if there was one rule to follow, it's listen. I don't know, Dunkel, do you agree with that?
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's why they say you get 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So that's why you got to listen more than you talk. And then to Aaron's point, when you listen, you get all the facts you need, right? And you just reverse engineer their pain points, you understand, right? And then you attack, right? With some of those open-ended questions. And generally speaking, if you do your job right, you get a close.
Yeah, one more thing. We talked about this a little bit about disqualifying your competition. A lot of times people don't want to talk about their competition, but they don't want to bring it up, right? But if you're bidding a job that's $100,000, the chances are you have competition, right? And so if you do all this work that we're talking about, and you can find out who the competition is, a lot of times the prospect may not tell you, but if you're saying, hey, XYZ has been doing your work for a long time, why am I here today?
Yeah.
I ask that question all the time. Well, let me tell you, they've kind of dropped the ball on a few things. That's what a good salesperson does, right? Or, hey, XYZ's been your provider for 20 years. Why am I here today? And they said, you're here to provide me a second bid. So basically, XYZ is going to get the job anyway, right? Let's have that conversation too, because now I'm going to pivot there. And I'm going to say, well, wouldn't you see value in having a backup provider to XYZ? Are there any things that XYZ can't deliver for you that I could maybe fill in? Is there a service call that they can't get to sometimes? And maybe I can be your backup provider. I actually had a customer back in the electrical business says, you be okay being my backup? I said, yeah, of course I'm okay being your backup. I'm not here to ruin a relationship of 20 years that you've had with your existing provider, right? I mean, I had that whole account in 6 months, by the way. Yeah, I'm not here to ruin your relationship with my competition. But again, that's what worked. And we took a lot of that backup provider. Wouldn't you like to keep them honest? Give us a second bid. And then one time we couldn't even win a bid. And I said, how about you just let me win a bid? How about you let me win one so I can show you what I can do? I actually bid a job at $1 once. I don't know if I ever told you guys a story. We bid 15 jobs for this one guy, and he said he was really looking to expand his vendor base. And I said, I'm 0 for 15. So he had a $750 job, and I sent the proposal out at $1. And he called me and he says, McLaughlin, you're going to do this job for $1. And I said, I'm going to do it for $1. I want to show you what we can do for you. True story.
Yeah.
And that's what I call taking chances. When you know you can't win, sometimes you have to take chances. And you know what he said to me? He goes, what's your real price? I said, it's $750. He said, go do the job. We did it. We did the job. We kicked ass on the job, and he became a client. If I didn't send the proposal out at $1, we never even had the conversation.
Yeah.
So when you're losing and you can't win, and if a lot of times our clients don't even know that they can't win. They just say, oh, I can't win the jobs. But when you can't win, you have to take some chances. But if you don't know that you can't win, then you didn't do your job.
Yep. That's
Make
another
sense?
thing I always learn from you, right? At the end of the day, if you know you're losing at a certain level, you got to learn to lose a deal. You got to be willing to lose, right? And I think that speaks to that, as well.
Yeah, we had a client that I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, and he loves he loves the quality of what we produce. He's like, I don't even care about the quantity. The quality you give me is so good that I don't even care. And he says he went into a really good situation and the bid was due the next day. And he's like, I know I'm late to the punch, right? He's like, I probably have zero chance of getting this job. It was a big job, by the way. And his response was so great. He said, maybe I'll catch you on the next one. Apparently, you're already through your process here. And it was actually a plant engineer. And he said, well, why? And he just said, well, I seem to be a little late. I want to give you a good look at what our company can do. He actually got the job, by the way. I love it. I'm like,
yeah,
that's what
that's amazing.
Taking chances. And this is a really good AltaVista client, really good sales organization. But again, are you taking those chances when you know you can't win? And do you even know when you can't win? Because sometimes they're stacked against you. And if you're not doing your work, you're not going to know the answer.
Yeah. I'm going to take a chance here. What else do we want to talk about today? I feel like we've been talking a long time on sales, marketing, consistency, hustling, process. Been a lot of great nuggets and tips here, but I think I might open it up.
Well, let me interject ideas,
here. Comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry to jump on there. Let me interject. I was thinking about this over the weekend, and we've got a lot of clients. There's 600 clients all over the country. All are varying in their success rates right now. But there's just too many tools out there today. There's too many tools. There's too much available to you to be struggling right now. This is not the economy where you should be struggling. There are people that are struggling. And I saw numbers from a residential contractor 2 weeks ago that is looking for investment. They're down 50% in 2 years. They're going to go out of business probably, right? And there is your opportunity. When the pool shrinks on the provider side, the remaining providers are going to be the winners. So this is the time to strike. There's just too many tools out there to be struggling at this point in time.
Yeah. Nichols, Dunkel, any tools you guys are seeing work?
No, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on Ray's point, it speaks to what we've been talking about for this whole podcast, right? They're using your tools. And like Ray said, there's so many tools out there. Like I mentioned before, if a commercial contractor doesn't necessarily see value in Google Ads, and I just gave an example of why there's value there. So that's a tool that some people might not be using. There's a million other tools that people might not be using. This is the time, in an economy like this is the time where you want to talk about discrediting your competition. Show up, do these processes, utilize these tools, pick up the phone, stick to your process, right? That's how you're going to discredit your competition. That's how you're going to differentiate yourself. And it's in times like this that really present that unique opportunity when there's a lot of your competition saying things are tough. I can't get my phone to ring. We're down, but whatever it is, that's the time to strike.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dunkel, you got any tools you like?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on them a lot. I mean, look, that you corrected me on the text message one. That's a great one, obviously. Yeah. Again, for me, I can't stress it enough. It's about, identifying your ideal client, right? And I think Ray talked about that too, right? It's almost better to know who you don't want to work with, and then understand who you do want to work with, and then spend your time, right, planting those seeds, right? I know that's something we talk about a lot, planting seeds, and then, kind of slowly watering, that seed, that plant with those different touch points, because again, it's never a question of if, it's simply a question of when, right? And again, when you're consistent, you're proactive, you're in front of the right people, you're in front of the right people that you want to do business with, good things will happen, right? And you follow those processes.
Let me interject on that one too, because that's something that I think we had this conversation last week internally with our teams. Sometimes you need to be a hunter, and I'm a hunter by nature. Most salespeople are hunters by nature, but a good hunter knows when to plant seeds, right? You're not gonna go in and just win all the business with a big institutional buyer. If you're selling a roof and Susie Jones's house and there's water coming through the living room as you're sitting there, it's time to hunt. It's not time to farm, right? Right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna close that deal before you leave, or you're not getting that deal, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in a bigger institutional situation, and again, I think the steps are still the same. Sometimes you're going to have to learn how to farm, and that's really hard for me because I'm a hunter by nature. But I've learned that farming lets things come back and they surprise you. But Dunkel, I know you've been surprised where somebody called you a year after you planted some seeds
100%.
and they're ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, hey, look, anybody got anything else?
Yeah. Hey, Aaron, I heard you on a podcast talking about AI. I don't want to get too deep into this, but can you give us like the 40,000 foot view of what you're seeing right now and what our team on the digital side is seeing?
Yeah. Always happy to do a quick AI update. You know, the one thing we're really seeing is more and more people searching on AI engines, ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, Gemini. I even want to say last week, AltaVista received 2 web inquiries, and the referral source to our website were both ChatGPT, right? And so I talked to one of them. I think Brian Dunkel is going to talk to the other. She goes, I asked ChatGPT a bunch of questions about what I was looking for, and it recommended you guys. And we said, wow, that's awesome. Wouldn't you love that for your business? There was my, some rapport building, quick pitch there. I don't know, initial benefit statement. Anyway, from a really high level, what we're seeing is more and more people are searching there. And it means that our clients need to be positioned to be found. Kind of goes back to something we mentioned earlier, right? When people are looking for you, how are they finding you? There's a shift to where people are looking. And we need to make sure we're shifting our marketing to be aligned with that. I think that would be my 40,000 foot takeaway of the week.
Right. And we've learned, I know internally, that reviews are critically important and not just Google reviews. And I think everybody has to realize that the focus on Google reviews for the last, 20 years has been great, but they're competitors, right? To ChatGPT and Grok and all these. So are they going to mitigate? Is ChatGPT using Yelp reviews today because they don't want to use Google reviews? There's a possibility that's happening. And getting Yelp reviews sounds like a stupid strategy, quite frankly, 10 years ago, but today it's relevant. You're seeing it. I've seen it. So I know that's going to make it a little bit harder. The other thing that's, I think, really challenging is that we talk about SEO not being dead. It's not dead, but the challenge is, are you going to lose the traffic? And that's where SEO is going to be there as a source, but is ChatGPT or the AI engine going to steal your traffic? Now, Reddit is suing somebody today. I don't know which AI engine they're suing, but they're suing somebody over the use of the traffic. So we don't have the playbook on how that'll play out over the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think anybody does, but we know that SEO and that reviews are what is driving the results on ChatGPT and these other AI engines. And so that's why SEO is not dead. And that's why this review jet. Go ahead, Aaron.
Search everywhere optimization. It doesn't necessarily mean just Google, which is what it meant for years and years. People search everywhere. Another cool update. Google's going to start featuring more posts of content from business and professional pages on Instagram, TikTok, etc. So people are searching. People are not going to stop searching. AI is changing where we're searching, but it's this search everywhere optimization idea of being positioned everywhere, right? We don't know how it's going to play out. We know it's evolving. Cool.
One last thing for me. It's on the capital side. So we met with a capital group in Washington, D.C. We know that there's a little bit of an unwind going on with some of the private equity deals that we've been seeing. We've had some requests from clients about some capital needs. We do have a partnership with a great capital partner who invests in contractors, and we're going to bring him on the show. I'll leave his name for a later episode, but I've met with him 15 times or so. He knows what he's doing. He's been in the game for 30 years. So I'm really excited that we'll have that ability to actually help our clients, even with some capital needs, if there are any. And if they want to unwind or buy back or even sell their business, I think we're there for the whole resource.
Yeah, and I think that's a great teaser. and a great closing note, right? So we know what we're talking about next time who we're interviewing. I think that'll be an awesome episode.
Right.
Cool. Brian, anything else?
No, I think we covered it. I think that was a pretty thorough.
Oh,
Any closing words?
No, good to go. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks,
Enjoy
guys.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
guys.
everyone tuning in and listening. We look forward to another episode soon.